Okay, welcome to Firefighting Today, the weekly roundtable. We meet each Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We talk about all sorts of things fire service related. Tonight, the panel is going to discuss a go or no-go decision as it relates to structural firefighting. Very controversial subject here, but that's what we do sometimes. We like to do that. If you are watching us live on YouTube, you feel free to leave a YouTube comment, and if you leave a YouTube comment, you should be able to interact with the panel. We'll be able to bring your comment right into the discussion and make sure that happens. So that's what we want you to know right up front. Okay, so let's get started and see if we can get some introductions. All right, my name is Peter Lamb. I'm the author of PeteLamb.com, and I'm the host of the Firefighter Training Podcast. We'll introduce the rest of the panel. Adam, say hello. Introduce yourself to the folks, if you would.
Good evening, everyone. Adam Ganley, coming from Kellogg, Iowa. I'm a firefighter EMT captain for the fire department.
Excellent. Thanks for being here, Adam. Charlie.
Hi everyone, Charlie Hall, Deputy Chief, TF Green Airport Fire Rescue here in Providence, Rhode Island.
Thank you, Charlie. Always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
New roundtabler with us tonight. We have Captain Joe Pernesti. Joe, tell the folks a little bit about yourself and your department, if you don't mind.
Good evening. I'm Joe Pernesti. I'm a captain with the City of Elyria, Ohio Fire Department. It's in northern Ohio, just west of Cleveland. Been on 26 years. Medium-sized department, about 70 guys. 3 stations, 3 engines, and a truck.
Okay, great. Ethan, say hello.
Hi, Pete. Ethan Bansek from the city of Lorain, Ohio, right next to Joe, and from Pass It On Fire Training.
All right, thanks, Ethan. It's too many Ohio guys in one. I don't know. We got a couple of Rhode Island guys, a couple of Ohio guys. I don't know. It sounds like a gang to me. Greg, say hello.
Good evening, everybody. Greg Howard, Deputy Chief of the Dashwood Fire Department.
Yes, and where is Dashwood Fire?
Vancouver Island. It's the west coast of Canada.
Excellent. Joe Starnes, say hello.
Hi, I'm Joe Starnes, at joestarnes.com and killtheflyshower.com. I'm a member of Oak Grove Volunteer Fire Department. And with that, thanks for having me.
All right. Kevin, say hello.
Hi, Pete. I'm Kevin Burns, Deputy Fire Chief in Framingham, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston.
All right. Thanks for being here, Kevin. I appreciate it. And Warren, last but not least.
Hi, Warren Whitley, retired from Prince William County, Virginia, Department of Fire and Rescue, and now living in eastern North Carolina by the water. I've actually been to Framingham.
You've been to Framingham, okay.
I have. I took an Officer 1 course there many years ago.
All right, well, we'll have to talk about that one offline, I'm sure, to make that go. All right, so there is some debate in the fire service. We're debating all sorts of things these days, and one of the topics that's being debated is, the always go, right? We always go in. And there is some discussion being done right now about should there be a go or a no-go decision. And I guess I want to start the conversation just to get some sense. Can everybody see that graphic that's up there now? If you can, just give me a nod or a thumbs up or something so I know. All right, yeah. So here's the question that I posed to the group right up front. We're talking about structural firefighting. So we're not talking about car fires, dumpsters, anything else. We're not talking about occupied or vacant at this point. We're talking about structural firefighting. And the question is it go or no-go decision, or is it go and slow go? And by that I mean, should we temper our initial efforts to go in? Is it go, no-go, or is it go, slow go, or slow go? And does anybody have any thoughts on that, or anybody want clarification on where we're going with this topic tonight? Anybody? Don't jump at once. Everybody good? Everybody good? All right, so let's move on to the next question, and I will ask the panel members to comment on this. Let's assume we're already in the building. We're going to approach this backwards. Let's assume we're already in the building. Somebody just give me a reason. Why would we exit a building? Why would we stop firefighting and leave the building, whether that be a controlled withdrawal or whether that be an emergency evacuation? Greg, what are your thoughts?
Oh, if we didn't get a water supply.
Okay, so the lack of water supply or an interruption in water supply would certainly be a reason to leave the building. Ethan, I think you wanted a shot at that.
Rapid fire advance.
Rapid fire advance, right? So sometimes an unrestrained fire growth or something happening beyond our capability. I think that's a fair one, at least. Charlie, did you want to weigh in?
Information from outside, either the safety officer or the incident commander who was observing the conditions in total, where we're occupied inside with the particular sector in which we're working. Get information from those people that their conditions are deteriorating rapidly.
All right, I like that. So information from the outside. I'd like to put my own twist on that if I can, and I have one that's very similar, and that is anytime there is really severe contradictory information. You say you've got nothing showing, and the ladder company says there's heavy black smoke showing. You know, anytime there's something that's completely at odds might lead you to do something like that. So good ones so far. Joe, our new roundtable. Why do I want to get out? Give me a reason I want to get out.
Well, I think if, like Ethan said, if any kind of rapid fire, but I think if sometimes if your gut feeling's telling you to get out, then it's time to get out. I think we sometimes miss that one. If your gut's telling you, if you got a lot of experience, and your gut's telling you to get out, I think we should probably put that one on the list also, that something bad's going to happen.
Okay, I like that, and I do like the fact that you qualified it with a number of years of experience or some experience, because I think that's important, that the experience is an issue. You know, there are new folks that want to leave before they get in, so you got to have a little bit of a tempered decision making. Kevin, do you want to jump into to why we might leave a building?
I'm going to make Chief Starnes very happy and say that my thermal imaging camera, which I'm using, is showing a rapid temperature increase, and I am without the protection of a hose line to cool that atmosphere.
Okay, so you really got two there, right? So you're relying on an instrument. Holy crap, we're relying on a thermal imaging camera inside for heat. Wow, that's a good one. I like that one. And you're also saying that you're also without the protection of a hose line. So those are all good reasons, obviously, to get out. Warren, you want to weigh in on that? Any reason to either orderly withdrawal or emergency evacuation? Warren, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I think one of them is poorly done or uncoordinated ventilation activities that make things worse than they were.
Okay, so uncoordinated ventilation that could make things worse than it already was. Good, I like it. Adam, we stole a lot of thunder. You didn't unclick. You want to jump in, or you where you want to go?
Oh, I was gonna say conditions, and I gotta agree with Captain down there. Your gut feeling.
Okay, I like it. So I did not speak to Mr. Starnes. Mr. Starnes, we're in the building. We're operating somewhat safely. What reasons would we have to get out of the building?
Well, first of all, let me send my Golden Award to Chief Burns. Thank you. Imminent threat to life and safety to the firefighters, thermally or structurally, just to say it kind of anally, but the bottom line is if the plan is not going to plan, then get out of the building and get you a new plan.
Okay, and so you're the first mention of structurally, all right? So we could have, partial collapse, some collapse. So I think we got this. I think all firefighters get this question, and I use this question an awful lot when I'm teaching. I ask this question, and you see we've got a variety of experience on the panel, and we've all come up with pretty much some really great answers for that, all right? So let me just ask this question. What are the reasons I go in? Now, everybody's standing there looking at me like, well, of course we go in. That's what we do. What are the reasons we go in the building?
I want the nice slide back.
No, you don't get to pick. I see I'm in charge of the slides tonight. So, Chief Burns, what do you got? What is the reason I enter a building?
I have a viable victim that's been reported by a reliable source as being in the building.
A viable, wow, we're talking about viable victims and reliable sources, okay? I've been to a few fires, and those were short in supply. Both of those were short in supply. Charlie, why do I go in?
Well, I'm going to take the opposite tack to Chief Burns and say, we don't have anybody that can tell us for sure that there's nobody in the building, but we don't have accountability for the occupants. We have to go under the assumption that they are still in there and go forth.
All right, so we're saying that in the absence of somebody telling me something, I have to assume the building's occupied. And we're not teaching strategy and tactics here tonight. I mean, we know some of the reasons that would indicate that a place is occupied or what have you. I understand that. So Charlie's position is I'm going unless somebody proves me otherwise. All right, so that's a good discussion. Who else would like to get in this conversation? Captain Joe, you want to jump in?
Well, I think if I can get the fire, if I can put the fire out, we talk about rescue, but if you're not sure, sometimes putting water on the fire kind of helps if there are people in there, and that would be one of my reasons for entry is to get some water on the fire and try to stop the fire spread.
Okay, all right, I like that. Chief Whitley might have a comment or two. I see a move in his direction. Chief Whitley, what do you got?
Well, I think we go in after we've done our risk analysis and mitigated the risk that we can from the exterior before we go in, regardless of if there is a viable victim. Obviously, we do need to get in there, but maybe this is the slow go. Let's make sure we're taking care of the hazards that give us the best chance for success for us and for the victim before we make entry, just rushing in there with the big eye.
Okay, so let's ask the question here, and we're kind of going exactly where I wanted to go, and I'm glad we've got some diverse opinions here because that's exactly right. I can't rescue the victim from outside. I cannot rescue the victim from outside generally. I mean, I could throw a ladder. We're not going down the paths here. But as Captain Joe said, can I affect the fire from the outside maybe, which might have some impact on the victim? So we need to have that discussion somewhere along the way here. Joe Starnes, reasons for entry, other reasons for entry. You've heard a couple.
Well, our mission is to save lives, protect property, and favorably influence the situation. I think we should enter the building when it's necessary to favorably influence the outcome of the situation and not harm firefighters and our customers. If we start to choose reasons for entry other than what our mission are, and we make them automatic, I think we're asking for trouble someday. So to me, it's about if we, like Warren said, if we don't have a viable plan, then the hope is not a plan. I'm a big believer that the reason for leadership is to be able to tell people what you don't stand for as well as what you stand for. And it's got to be a viable plan. If it's saving life, it's got to be a viable plan to save life. It's not swapping life. And the other piece is that a viable plan for suppression, we say all the time, we won't risk a lot to save a little. Going to management, it's automatic. To me, there are no automatic goes. There are no automatic stays. They are all risk statements, and there got to be a viable. For what we're doing, then we certainly will get what we plan. So that's a long answer. You didn't want a long answer.
All right. Well, let's change the discussion a little bit. One of them was, and Chief Burns mentioned this. Let's see if I can get this to work here. All right. So let me ask you a question. Is there anybody on the panel in these cases that you have listed on the panel, on the graphic here? I would say that we are going to go, right? This is a go because we say that we're here for life safety. I guess my question to the panel is there any variation in severity or any difference in the way we might go based on these? Are these all equal? Are these all equal in everybody's mind on the panel, or are they different? Anybody want to chime in about that? I think what I've presented here on the slide is there is a victim. Somehow, some way, there is a victim, or at least a hint of a victim. Are they all the same in your mind and in your resources? Charlie, what are you thinking? Are these? We're going to go, right? We assume that we're going to go on any of these. Are they all the same?
No.
What are you thinking?
The victim in the window that drops from sight, you've witnessed that. Dispatcher on the phone with the victim, you have viable information, accurate information. Person exits and they said there was someone with them. The cars in the driveway, the neighbor report, I've made the decision myself based on just that, and it had a positive outcome. The gut feeling, I'm going to change to my size up. It's going to be, again, what we've seen before. What have we seen before? What are we seeing now? What's the building telling us? You mentioned things that you do when you teach. Same thing when I teach the officership course. I tell these kids, and they're all kids to me these days, but I tell these kids, the building is telling you a story. You've got to read it. You've got to read it closely and understand what the building is telling you. So I would respectfully change that gut feeling to my size up. In my experience, my size up will tell me whether it's, based on the other four, it's going to be a go, and then my size up is just going to go. We're going to make our interior attack and our advance, and that's going to be our plan. First line of the fire, second line backing up the first, getting into tactics and strategy, always protect the stairway, on and on and on.
All right, let me ask you, on that first one, this victim in the window that drops from sight, are you going to take any risk that's different from the one that's the car in the driveway? Would you take a different risk? Would you deploy personnel differently? Would you work ahead of a hose line?
Yes, absolutely. That might be event entered search right there. Where the victim dropped from the window, if it's not accessible by aerial, get the appropriate ground ladder, break out the window with the tip of the ladder, and make your entry. And I have to say something here, guys, and yeah, I'm old school, but safety notwithstanding, and I'm the first person who would advocate safety. I've got parts of 1,500 memorized, but I got to tell you, boys, it's a risky business we're in. And at some point, we've got to get in, we've got to get the people out, and we've got to put the fire out. And fires get put out from the inside out with very few exceptions. So, all safety notwithstanding, and again, I'm an advocate of safety. I'd be the first one to bang the drum when someone did something stupid, but I have to say, it's a risky business we're in, guys, and sometimes we have to take chances.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
I agree, but I think what we face now is, I think, and you hit the nail on the head when you said everyone is younger than you. And I think we have to take into account.
Well, not everyone. Jeez, don't give me a break.
Is that the experience factor? And if you don't have the experience or the training or the knowledge, that's where I think we're getting firefighters in trouble. And I wish we could wave a magic wand, but you're absolutely right. We got to go in and put the fire out if we can, but that's what I think is lacking in today's fire service is sometimes, do they have all the information based on their training and study that they can do it.
All right.
With an idea in my head, Cap, of what I think the answer is. Why do you think that is? What are we missing here? Is it experience? Is it training? Is it lack of activity? What are we missing here? Because the Joe Starnes, the Kevin Burns, the Pete Lambs, myself, we've been on the job quite a while, and I remember 20 years ago it was a hell of a lot busier than it is now. We had a lot more fire activity than we do now. Well,
yes.
I think what I want to know is how do we substitute real hands-on training or real experience when we're not getting the fire activity that we used to have?
Well, I think it comes down from the leadership from people like us that are we delivering the right training, the basics of stretching the hose lines, of incorporating all this, the new fire behavior studies and data that's out. We have to utilize it as a tool in the toolbox, but it's how we deliver it. The one thing that I dislike is anyone that poo-poos it right away that has a lot of time on or experience. I think you take it and you break it down and you educate the younger firefighters based on your knowledge of grasping that information. They're relying on you. The one thing with the internet, is that nowadays you can go out and get 10 different answers for one question. And that's where we have to remember as older firefighters that, there's a lot of different answers out there, and they're relying on us to give them the right one when the bell rings. And, that's my feeling on it, that we can't poo-poo everything, but we got to be able to train them the right way because there's so many other options today for kids.
Cap,
all right. Hold that thought,
I'm
Charlie.
not going to monopolize this, Pete. I just want to make one more comment. Cap, you hit it right on the screws. Not only should we not poo-poo it, it is incumbent upon us, and it's our responsibility, one of our biggest responsibilities, to pass along our experience and our knowledge for those that come after us. Because someday they're going to be us, and we're going to be gone. And if we don't do that, and they don't have the experience, the training, and the know-how, where is our fire service going to be tomorrow, the day after, and next week?
Absolutely.
All right, I got that. Now, let's get back, because Joe, you said something that was really important there. There are a bunch of different answers. And what we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes is the fact that not all of those answers might be wrong. In fact, there might be many different answers. I deliberately put up this slide because we've got, what do we got? 5 examples. We got a bunch of people on the panel. We could all approach this a different way. I'm gonna say let's just ask this question, Kevin. Chief Burns, your first alarm. How many personnel on your first alarm?
Well, Pete, first I want to say I want to work for Charlie Hall. So Pete, we get
coming from you, Chief, that's a compliment. I appreciate it.
2 engines, a ladder, a heavy rescue, and a chief, Pete. So 14 altogether.
14 personnel. All right. So 14 personnel. You arrive. The victim is in the window that drops from sight. How are you going to handle that? Everybody's arriving within 2 or 3 minutes. How do you handle that, Kevin?
Okay, Pete. So we're going to stretch a hose line. And I'm going to make an assumption that the place isn't fully involved with fire, and we can make entry. But assuming that, I'm going to take a hose line. I'm going to go after that victim. I'm going to try to put that hose line between the fire and the victim. With all the bread and butter type tactics, coordinating, putting someone at that window.
Perfect.
I've got
perfect. Stop right there, because I think you said it all. Adam, it's 2:00 in the afternoon, and you got a house fire with victim dropping from. The victim was in the window and drops from sight. First question: at 2:00 in the afternoon on a weekday, how many personnel do you have, and is your answer going to be different from Kevin's?
Well, my answer is going to be way different from Kevin's. 2:00 in the afternoon, I can probably think of maybe two that are in town, and one's our city maintenance guy, and the other one's a part-time city maintenance guy. And he's not always around, so we're lucky if five. So, hopefully they got mutual aid coming as soon as possible. But how we're going to handle that is a good question.
Right. And not to I think Joe Starnes may have some of these situations. Any of our smaller departments, I'm not sure about Greg. Not every firefighter is an interior firefighter in every volunteer and on-call department. This situation that I presented to you was done very deliberately because it doesn't matter. Yeah, we may go. In a career department, Kevin may throw a ladder up there, throw two fire guys through the window, maybe without a hose line. I'm not going to make a judgment on that. I'm not going to say he's right, wrong, or indifferent. It really doesn't matter to me. But I know that Adam may not have the right two people, and he may not have the support backing him up to put water on the fire to be able to do that, or even Greg for that matter. Greg, you may be short-staffed as well in the volunteer system, and you may have that same situation. What does your 2:00 in the afternoon run look like, Greg?
Well, weekday days are our thinnest staffing, so we're paid on call for the most part. I get an engine with 3 to 5, and then a second engine to follow up from Hall 2. We get confirmed structure fires. We'll get automatic tanker support and a third engine, from neighboring districts. But it could be minimum staffing on any of those trucks, so 2 to 3 people.
Right. So would that scenario change for you, as we described it? Would that scenario change from you from where Chief Burns was?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to look at every call that way. I mean, we actually have a procedure where, as the truck leaves the station, we get a staffing number on the truck. So we have a 24/7 duty officer, and they'll typically go direct in the buggy. So as the guys are leaving the station with manned trucks, they'll report how many people are on the truck, so we can start to work that into the decision-making for tactics.
Sure. All right, so being that this is the way I am, let's change that first question that I had. What are the reasons for entry? Let's just shift that a little bit. What is my entry criteria is now the question. And that really is a completely different question, and I think any of us can answer this question based upon our own circumstances in our own department. What is some of your entry criteria? I think that frames the question different than reasons to enter. All right, we said that so what is my entry criteria? We said if there's a rescue, that's my entry criteria. Somebody early on, when we looked at our first question, which said, what are reasons to get out? Well, let me ask you, is the having a water supply, is that an entry criteria? Right? If we're going to get out, if we lose our water supply, is having a water supply an entry criteria? And I don't mean necessarily a hose line, I mean whatever it happens to be. Maybe it's tank water, maybe it isn't. If you have a hose line, is that an entry criteria in some departments? Captain Joe, I'll ask you a question. Do you have a squad company? Do you search ahead of the hose line in some cases?
Yeah. In fact, just yesterday we had a good work in a large balloon frame, and my truck company is a true truck company. We don't have any kind of water, and we were actually delivering Santa Claus at the time, which is a whole nother story. But we dropped Santa off. We arrived ahead of everybody. and I had 3 people, and my firefighter took in a water can. We had heavy smoke pushing, and we had a basement fire in a balloon frame. And the people out front were not sure if the people were home, and there was a car in a drive. So, you know, we had to make a decision less than 24 hours ago on that. That was my entry criteria. And, you know, we didn't go in too far because we did not have water. But, you know, that was my entry criteria about basically what you were talking about.
Okay. Let me, just because I'm a curious kind of guy, was anybody there?
No, but 2 feet in, when I walked in, there was an invalid bed.
Right.
So that kind of raises you up a little bit too. But no, nobody was in there. But
Okay.
we did not know.
Right. No, and I think that goes back to an earlier conversation. So anybody want to, so entry criteria is a victim, a water supply, or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe not a water supply, but I think water supply is an issue. Is there a number of people that we need? If any of you have not seen, as we record this, we are on November 16th, 2014. And I say that because people will watch this in the future. Today on the website Statter 911, we had a helmet cam video of a firefighter operating alone with the hose line in the building, kind of doing half a search and half a fire attack at the same time, a single firefighter in the building. Now, I don't say that to be critical. I say it because it was factual. I watched it. But in his world, should we be putting a firefighter in the building alone? I don't know. I think these are the decisions that I want to talk about tonight about entry criteria. So let me get back in the discussion here and see. All right, so there I am. So who wants to, what else? We said victim. We said we need a water supply. What else is an entry criteria or a decision that will help us enter? Greg.
Well, I've got a bunch of things I have to meet for the local OSH regulations. So I need to, if I have 2 guys in on a fire attack, I've got to be, assuming I'm one of the other people there, I need a pump operator, and I need 1 out who's dressed and ready to perform an immediate rescue.
And so that's the same we have as 2 in and 2 out, right? Right. Okay.
I also need to know that I have a second due truck that's going to arrive within 10 minutes to form a RIT team. Anytime I have, and it doesn't have to be a fire, it can be any kind of IDLH environment. Okay. Yeah, those are the ones right off the bat. I mean, you know, a big thing for me, Pete, is there's a term that I like, and I heard it earlier this year, and it's fire rescue athlete, because that's really what a guy humping a hose and pulling somebody out of a building has to be to do that. And not everybody that shows up in my department is an athlete, and it's something that goes into the decision-making process. So who's standing on the lawn as the RIT team? Those are all things we got to think about.
Okay, so now I'm hearing a discussion, and I like this discussion, and again, you know, everybody has different views on the panel, but I think it's important that we raise this issue. Does the quantity, and this is going to sound bad, does the quantity and or quality of the crew, the assembled crew, make a difference? Should it? Maybe it shouldn't in real life. But does it in some of rural America? I think it may. Let's hear from Joe Steins. I want to hear from Joe Steins. What are the entry criteria? How do we determine entry criteria? What are you thinking, Joe?
Well, I don't know. You know, everybody has their own what you bring. I think what is associated with you know my attitude towards this. I think part of it is that simply that if you're copying what everybody else is doing what you do, then you're going to get in trouble with it. What you're capable of doing. When we have Mrs. Smith falling out of window. We want to risk a lot to do that. Everybody's going to do that because we were born out of that community, especially in rural.
Joe, you're going to have to hold on, Joe. Just hold up for a minute.
You might know who fell out. So, from a moral standpoint, if you're going to push, all you have to do is. I'm gone.
All right, Joe, you gotta. Can you shut your camera off for a moment and see if you got some better audio? Because we lost a fair bit of that. So just shut camera off and try it again. See if that improves your audio.
All right. What I think is that you got to do what you're capable of doing. Things that other people, a full-blown response like you read in metro systems, and you're a ruler and you try to do that. I think you're setting yourself up for a big time failure. It might be as ugly as a deck gun through the window, and then through the window. It might be as pretty as an orchestrated SOP, first minutes. It can be as sophisticated as it can be, or it can be just, pretty just rudimentary. So, from the standpoint, do we know what we're doing? Do we know how to isolate the fire? The whole go no go criteria thing is based on what do I know about surviving the incident. If I don't have a plan that gives my folks a chance to survive the rescue or survive the deal, I got. So that's an ugly decision sometimes. Sometimes that's a decision that says the victim is not viable and I can't do anything about it. I don't want to make that decision. I'm not saying I do. But I will say you this, that if we don't have better technical ways of determining that we can survive the incident than some of the things we talk about, I think we're negligible. I don't think we have the right just to run in and go upstairs and get burned trying to get somebody out. I think that is caveman addicts, and we're smarter than that. The thermal imager, the ability to tell, the control of flow path. How many people are doing searches in front of lines that not even controlling flow paths? Do I sound passionate about that? I am. But you can search in front of a line. You can search without a line, but you bet that develop. It's going to burn you. So I'll shut up.
All right. Yeah, that was better actually, but we still had some choppiness. I'd like to hear from Chief Whitley. You've been quiet, Chief Whitley. I want to hear from you on anything we've talked about so far, but talking about entry criteria and bouncing off some of what Joe just said.
Well, I heard most of what Joe said. The one thing that he mentioned is copying what other people do. People that are good at bin enter search have practiced it a lot. People who don't practice a lot are now making a new ventilation hole.
Did Warren lock up on us? Adam's saying yeah, okay.
Yeah, his mic is muted.
Yeah, but actually the video froze too. I apologize to our viewers tonight. We're having some technical issues. Nothing to do with us, unfortunately. We're going to actually have to come back to Warren. Kevin, did you want to weigh in on anything we've talked about so far?
Yeah, I'll just say one thing. I think the numbers of guys showing up are important, and fortunately, I usually have a good number of guys that I can put on the Fireground quickly. But you know what I'd like to say, Pete, is sometimes we might have questions about guys' abilities, and it's been my experience that guys step up. Sometimes I've been afraid. I've got maybe not what I would consider the A-team on a hose line, for example, and boy, they went right in there and put the fire out. So I think sometimes I've found that some of the guys that you think are good maybe aren't quite as good as you think they are, And some of the guys that maybe you think of the B team are really closer to A players when push comes to shove. So
okay,
I'm for giving the guys a chance to step up and show you they can do the job.
Good point. Fair point. Anybody? Charlie, go ahead.
Yeah, Pete, I'd like to address a couple of things Joe Starnes said. It kind of shook me a little bit when he talked about people that showed up with him. Do they know what they're doing? I would respectfully say that I hope they do. If they rode the truck there, then there needs to be some kind of a criteria to test whether in fact they do or do not know what they're doing. Again, I'm only speaking from a large career department perspective, so maybe I have a little bit of tunnel vision. And the second thing I want to say is, are we going to send somebody in for a victim and risk somebody getting burned? Yeah, we are. I am. I've done it. I've sent people in. I've gone in myself and gotten burned going after somebody. So yeah, we do. And if that's a caveman mentality, so be it. I'm going to stand on what I said before, that it's a risky business for a gentleman, and sometimes we have to take chances.
Fair point. You know, we're sharing opinions here, and I knew that this topic would generate some differences of opinion. Captain Joe, I'll get to you in a minute. Greg, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, this follows up on a little bit of a conversation I think we had after last week's roundtable, and I think Joe's having a hard time with the audio, but I think in the volunteer paid on call side, it's a different world, I'm afraid, than it is in a large career department. And I don't know how it is with you guys. I mean, I know you have to meet your insurance requirements, but I think there's a large lack of oversight, and some departments really don't meet the training standard.
Okay, that's a fair point. I guess what I would say is, and Charlie, you know this from a training standpoint, but let me just say this: is a brand new firefighter one the same guy as a 10-year veteran on the engine? They're both firefighter certified, but is that the same person? And I think you would have to say no to that.
Absolutely not.
Right. So I think so I think that gets magnified a little bit on the volley side, because they may have some basic certifications. They're running, to go to your point, they're running to a lot less calls. They may have only had 3 or 4 fires this year. They may have missed 1 or 2 of those. So when you measure your personnel, and I'm not being demeaning in any way, shape, or form, absolutely not.
Nor am I, Pete. Nor am I. And if it came across that way, I sincerely apologize.
No.
Like that at all.
No. But I think there are differences, and I think what happens is, when, and I'd like to get Joe to comment on this, Joe Starnes. Joe, I want you to comment on the fact that, one of Joe's pet peeves is we have an NFPA standard that says everybody's here. And I think when you begin to apply that standard across the United States and or Canada, as we've got here represented tonight, I think it's different. I think there are some differences. So before I go to Joe Starnes, Captain Joe, did you want to weigh in here?
Yeah, the 2 things. I think that I'm glad we have an international flavor here, because, number one, in Canada, you can look no further than what I believe it was in Yellowknife or Yellow something, where they had a collapse, and they hold those officers criminally negligent in that, and they can answer that. And then my other point is, it's about command and control. I think every firefighter, young firefighter or firefighter or crews, are going to want to go inside, like Charlie said, but they need that leadership out front. They need that boss out front to weigh that risk for them. Because yes, they will go and they will push it, but you need to have that chief out front to be the one to say, go or get out, or that's it.
Yeah, and I would certainly agree. I think some of my toughest decisions as a fire chief were to hold people back. I think that's as difficult sometimes, or to tell people to pull out, or something of that nature. Let's see if Greg, you can answer that. I'm sure you're familiar with the Yellowknife incident, and are you likely to be held responsible in Canada?
Absolutely.
So criminally, civilly, or both?
Both. Yeah, without a doubt.
Okay. And what I think Captain Joe is correct. I think they were held. They were found and charged certainly in Yellowknife, weren't they?
Yeah, and it went right to the chief. Lots of issues on that fire, but lack of training. They turned a working fire into basically a training drill, and nobody's familiar with it. They had a not to code shed, basically saw shed, on the side of a commercial that had a fire in it and didn't have enough roof trusses to start with, and it had a snow load on it, and they decided to cut a vent hole in it for no reason, and it collapsed with people inside. So the guys on the roof went in, and a couple guys on the inside died.
Right. It's interesting. I had a call about 6 or 8 months ago from a working fire situation, and somebody thought they were going to make it a drill at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's a vacant abandoned structure, so we'll drill with it. And the decision was made not to do that, and I believe that was the correct decision. We can't change the play in the middle of it, certainly. Joe Starnes, can you give me a little piece of audio? Give me a short piece of audio, and let's see if you're there.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Do you want to weigh in on this? Is every firefighter 1-2 the same, and are departments the same across the country?
No, I don't think so. I think we've had a conversation around standard. We're not very standard at all. We want to be. It's not something that we don't want not to be, but I think we're not standard at all. I was telling a fire captain the other day, he was complaining about the people who showed up on a call he had, and we were talking about the volunteer system and of course the one we have here. I mean, a lot of things are right. Good training academy, good firefighter 1 and 2 certification programs, good equipment. I mean, there's a lot of things that are right. But when you get to that call and that captain shows up and he's got 3 people that he trusts and about 6 that he thinks are green and maybe can't pull off what he needs done, he or she needs done, we had the discussion about having in the volunteer system, you just have 1 or 2 that's got to do the best with 5 or 6, and they're helping neighbors professionally. That's all they are. But we still got an obligation not to hurt them, and I guess that's why I'm so passionate about that. I think the concept is we're there to favorably influence that situation. We're not there to die for Mrs. Smith. If we're not there not to get a burn on our finger either. I'm not saying it's that one-sided, but this thing of just automatically assigning the risk model to it that will put us in small odds of getting hurt. I think we got to work better at this. We've got to have more accountability as a fire chief, as Captain Joe was saying in the command and control side of this in the yard. To me, the deal is we are there to do more than that customer can do for themselves, and we must, in a volunteer system, we must be as professionally trained and resourced as we know how to be. But if we're not, and it's that day, I don't think we ought to get hurt for it severely, and I don't think we ought to die for it.
All right, that's fair enough. Joe, I need you to take about 4 or 5 minutes because I want to put the wrap on this as we go. But take about 4 or 5 minutes and talk about your use of the thermal imaging camera as an assistance. Reading the temperature palette. What are you talking about for criteria, if you will, with the thermal upon entry?
Well, we based our testing so far on basically the gear. If we're exposing our gear to above 400, 450, you would argue about how much, how long. But if we're exposing that gear for an extended length of time as it relates to the engineering specification of that gear, then we're out of bounds. We have enough technology now to understand a lot about what we're exposing to. So the neutral plane, if we enter into an access path, and that access path is a bi-directional flow, and that neutral plane is dropping, and it's headed towards the 48-inch mark, that's a no-go. And it doesn't mean we go back in the yard and wait till it burns down. It means that we mitigate and try to bring that temperature down, or apply extreme another direct way to bring that temperature down to put that crew in there. Because the concept is to get that crew where it needs to be to get between the fire and the fuel load and try to stop it. So we use it that way. We use a pallet. We use an camera of the temperature. We tell people use the spot to make the camera move modes, but don't use the spot temperature. We tell them to do a 6-point check. We tell them to check behind them. You tell them to condition as they go. We tell them to look at the officer carries the camera in our situation, and that one of the things we're doing is looking at the gear of the firefighter. Now, in the May test, we will put some material on the packs that we know we're getting the right emissivity back. We'll see if we're getting the reads, because gear absorbs heat. So we don't know if we're right yet, but we know that we can tell that the gear is heating up. We're using it now to tell if the firefighters preheated the gear before they even make entry into it. We're using it to locate the cold spot in the flow path, to understand if we're actually got air moving, and if we're in that flow path, and if it's unidirectional or if it's bidirectional. We're hanging curtains so that we're operating inside the smoke storage, which gives us a maximum temperature of about 300 plus at the 48-inch mark if we don't have a flow path. So, but we need the thermal imager to know all that, and we use the thermal imager on site thermal on the Fireground and to see where our heat is, because that's kind of what we're in the business for. I hope that answered for what you're after.
Yeah, no, I think that was good. I want to go down to comment that was in the chat room, and we could certainly run this one for longer than an hour, but we're going to hold it to an hour. Let's go down to Captain Joe. So Captain Joe is that, there's been a rule of thumb for a long, long time. If I can't stand the heat in my gear, kind of thing, maybe I need to back out. I guess the question, expand your comment, if you will, for the audience.
Well, I agree with the technology, but I think we need to always stay simple in our thought process and our technique. And to me, what is wrong with the process of, if I'm in a situation where I'm feeling the heat through my gear, two things. If I have a hose line, we're going to put water up at the ceiling and cool the area down. If I don't have a hose line, I'm too far in, and I'm getting the heck out of it. And I think that's I agree with Joe Starnes that he's absolutely right with utilizing that tick. But what I worry about is I don't want to see someone so confused. What he's talking about with the flow paths, it takes a little bit of study. And I worry that people are taking a snippet here or a snippet there or this internet or that internet search, and they're trying to put something together that they just don't quite understand. They're catching bits and pieces.
I think that's fair. I guess my only comment to that was, and certainly I've been around long enough to know that if your gear's getting that hot, I think one of the things that is a question about that in my mind, Captain Joe, is that one of the things we're finding now is from the time I feel that critical heat in my gear till the time I'm on fire, right? I mean, what is the reason now that we have a 500-degree face mask now in the new standard, right? It's 500 degrees. Why is that? Because face masks were burning out. Face masks were failing. So obviously that rule of thumb wasn't quite as good as it should have been because somebody was getting so close they were doing it. I'd just be concerned today about the time I have, and this could be a whole nother session, is the window of opportunity. When I get in there and I feel that heat burning my gear, I may not have enough exit time, and I guess that's one of the questions. But I certainly agree that technology can fail, but I'm wondering, I think this is a good discussion tonight, and I want to put some summary statements on it kind of quick so that we stay within our time frame. But I think that it's a good discussion. I think this is the place, and I agree with Captain Joe that we are the folks who can provide some guidance on this for folks that are listening. They should take a listen to what we're thinking about here tonight. And I think that our views represent, we have fors and against, we have pros and cons, and that's exactly what I want to do with this panel is to show the different techniques. So let's go ahead. Is somebody going to say something?
Yeah, Pete, one thing about all this, and I agree with what the captain said, but the concept of I'm not, if I'm hot, I won't even believe the camera if I'm that hot. We were at a burn last Saturday a week ago, and I watched on the second floor, I watched a neutral plane drop from about 3 feet off the ceiling to the floor and start to deteriorate an ignition officer's gear in less than 12 seconds. I think our fire loads and our heat release rates now are such that what we depended on and how far in we are now with the gear we have, I think we got a gap. Now, we may have a gap with depending on technology or being distracted by it or all the things or the training of it. I'm not so sure we're dumbing it down. I think we're doing just the opposite. I think we're going just the opposite from dumbing it down. I think what we're doing is making ourselves smarter. I think what we're doing is making it more demanding for a firefighter to understand some of the sciences associated with it so that they can survive the incident. Because what's killing us and what's hurting us is that 3 standard deviation up at the top end of that distribution. It's not the everyday stuff. And we're not, you think we're not getting enough fires, we're not getting enough of those distributions of those kind of incidents either. But the problem is we don't understand that. And I watched a training burn this Saturday. I watched 3 burns this week. And I watched where the camera would have stopped them pushing farther in, and they would have cooled long before they cooled if they had used the camera. And that's I guess I don't think we're dumbing it down, and I mean that respectfully. I don't mean, I'm a very passionate guy, but I do mean that very respectfully.
And I agree. I guess what I meant is that you still need to study. I don't want to see today's generation think that just like a phone solves all your problems in life with an app. There is no app for a working structure fire. There never will be. And I don't think that, and so I don't mean it in the way that we're dumbing it down. I just don't want to see the future, whatever it holds, that we're relying on all this great technology because it's still using your brain and water when it comes down to it, and study of the firefighting.
All right,
Bravo, Joe. Bravo.
I think that's where we're going to leave it at this point. So, Joe, just real quick, where can we find you? We're going to run the panel just for the folks that have websites and other information. So, Joe, where can people find information about your stuff? Joe Starnes?
JoeStarnes.com or killtheflashover.com or Facebook, Joe Starnes Fire Emergency Services. And in just about any way you probably call the tax man, you can find me that way too, Chief.
All right, sounds good. Ethan, what website do I want to check?
PassItOnFiretraining.wordpress.com is the site.
PassItOnFiretraining.wordpress.com is Ethan's new site. I want to show him some love and get over there and check that out and make it happen. Captain Joe, you go out, you teach, you're around and about. Where can folks get a hold of you or find you if they need to?
Well, I have a email address that I try to put a little daily training snippet out. It's EFD, like Elyria Fire Department, EFDCaptain33 @gmail.com. And you can find me on Fire Engineering's blog quite often, and at FDIC next year, 2015.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And for folks that are listening, you certainly want to subscribe to Joe's email. That's a good list. He doesn't spam you. He just puts out some training tidbits every day. You can find me at PeteLiam.com. You can find me at the Firefighter Training Podcast. And certainly we'd like you to go see the archives of any of these shows if you go to firefightingtoday.com. All right, thank you all, and we will see you again next week at 8 p.m. Eastern. Take care.